Hello again, and welcome back to our study of Ecclesiastes. I hope this study has been beneficial for you. I've enjoyed the preparation that I've gone through in order to bring these lessons to you, and I hope that these lessons are indeed a blessing and a benefit to you. We've been studying about Solomon and his quest for happiness, his search for happiness, and we've gotten to the point where we've determined that as he's on his deathbed, he's looking back and realized that his life has been empty. And we realize a lot of why it's been empty is because he has fallen away from God. He let the women that he was involved with lead him away from the true God and into worshiping false gods. And we've talked about things that we realize because of death. Death makes us question the important things in life. We can live our life any way we please until a brush of death makes us reevaluate. There are those who curse God and deny him and ignore him until they're on their deathbed. Death is a judge who questions our worthiness of life. Death is a litmus test by which we determine have we lived as we should, or do we feel that we're unprepared. Death is a knife. It's a knife that divides the world into the fearful and the unafraid. It divides the remorseful from those at peace. It divides the angry from the accepting, and it divides the hopeless from the hopeful. Death is something that we all must face. And a man facing death wrote Ecclesiastes. Solomon was old by the time he wrote the book, and he saw all too clearly that his time on earth is short. And the same can be said of all of us. Our time here, even if we live to an old age, is still a relatively short amount of time. Because man dies, and because we all do die, life means nothing as far as what we do in this earthly life, as far as our earthly pursuits go. What's important is what we do as far as preparing ourselves for eternity. If one cannot come to grips with death, he cannot fully come to grips with life, because this life is all about preparing ourselves for that upcoming day of death. For Solomon, death was a defeat, not just a defeat of his physical body, but a defeat of all the hopes and the dreams and the ambitions of life. That's why we need to be important, not to wrap our hopes around things of this life, but to prepare ourselves for the life that is to come. The Book of Ecclesiastes is a wonderful book, and I think you'll enjoy the study in it. We can divide it into 6 basic divisions. The prologue, and we read this in the first 3 verses. And then, starting in chapter 1 and continuing into verse 2, we read of the futility of knowledge and wisdom. Then, starting in chapter 3, and for all of chapter 3, we read of the uncertainty of life beyond death. In chapters 4 through 6, we read of the manifold oppressions that are done under the sun. Then, in verses 7 through 11, we read of the vanities of life. And then, in the final chapter, in chapter 12, we read Solomon's conclusion. There's 3 basic questions that are dealt with in the book of Ecclesiastes. Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? And how can I be happy? This book challenges every notion of what it takes to lead to fulfillment and the good life. This book is one of the most relevant books in the entire Bible for society and for the society that we live in today. The message of Ecclesiastes is simple but profound. The message of Ecclesiastes is this: life without God is pointless. We're going to keep today's lesson short and sweet. Life without God is pointless. Make sure that God is in your life, and not just by lip service. Live your life for Him. Study the scriptures to make sure that you are living according to what He says and not according to what you want to do. Remember the words of Jeremiah the prophet that we read in Jeremiah 10 verse 23, that it is not in man to direct his own steps. Look to God for guidance. Look to His word to guide you so that you may walk within the paths of righteousness. Live for Him. Live for Him today. Resolve to do things His way to please Him. And then if you face death, just as Solomon had to face death, you can face it with boldness instead of fear. There's some apprehension about death. I understand that fully. It's entering into the unknown. There should be apprehension. That's just human nature. But let's be prepared for when that day of death comes, that we know that we have done our part to hear, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." Thank you for listening today, and I hope that you'll continue to listen to these lessons as they come from the Book of Ecclesiastes. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye, and God bless.